Hey guys, welcome back. Another video out for you guys. Hope the sound's okay. I'm not sure what else to do with the sound. Someone did mention that the sound was a little bit off, but it's shooting straight from my iPhone. I don't think there's any problems. I listened to the video myself. I didn't have any problems, so I don't know. Let me know if it's okay. If not, I'll have to make some changes. But today's video is on the topic of Gnosis, of achieving that remembering, right? Achieving the truth, the inner truth. So the truth is actually defined as a sense of remembering, as a form of remembering. Because what really has happened here is we've entered a state of forgetfulness, right? And to enter a state of remembering, we have to rediscover that truth. Okay, that is present within. But there is a distinction that needs to be made. And I don't think that everyone may potentially have this truth present within, because the truth comes from that divine spark, which comes from Sophia, which comes from the one true source. Okay, now there is a distinction made between what we know as NPCs and those with consciousness, right? Those with true consciousness. So what really is happening for an NPC is that person is operating from a lack of divine spark. The person is operating solely from a mind-body consciousness, the ego mind. The soul, what we know as the soul, is there. It is present, but it is not holding the divine spark within it, okay? And they simply possess a mind intellect. It's that of the lower astral plane. The lower astral plane is what encompasses all of our thoughts, lower thoughts, and also higher thoughts in the actually higher astral plane. I'm sorry, so I made a mistake. So it's both the higher and the lower astral plane, but it is called the lower mental body. That's the distinction that I wanted to make. So, being that it is called the lower mental body, then that would potentially mean that there is a higher mental body, right? That being said, though, to finish on the lower mental body, the lower mental body is comprised of these thoughts that we then create from our soul that holds that intellect, right? Because the mind is not the one creating the thoughts, and many people may have heard this before. The mind simply acts as a receiver and a decoder of information, but the intellect is the one generating those thoughts. So these thoughts exist on that, like I said, higher and lower astral plane. Therefore, these thoughts become entities, and that's where we have demons, that's where we have gods, right? Because we can have negative and positive thoughts. And as you may know, as you may have concluded, the negative entities will seek to generate more negative thoughts because that is their nourishment. And the positive entities, the gods, will seek to generate more positive thoughts. In the end, though, they are a result of our creation and are a result of our turmoil of being here. Our turmoil of being in this man eats man or dog eat dog world, in which our interests for self-preservation are in direct opposition to one another, right? I'm filming this on a tree. I'm using this tree to film. I need to make a fire. I need to use this tree, the bark of this tree, to make that fire, right? To keep myself warm. It is no negative intent towards the tree, but I'm simply trying to keep myself warm. I see an animal, I'm hungry. I go to kill that animal. I see plants, I see berries. I take and I feed myself, right? It's the whole hierarchy is designed to create suffering for another person or being at the expense or for the point of, satisfying another being's needs, right? So that's where the idea of justification comes in. Who is more just, right? Me for eating the lion or the antelope, or the antelope running away and me not getting my nutrition, because there is no true justification here. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's a Ponzi system, right? So that being said, that lower mental plane that encompasses the astral holds those thoughts, those memories. But these memories can only be held if they are accompanied by an emotion. Okay? Because the intellect comes from the soul, the thoughts generated will create an equal, an opposite, or an equal and matching emotion, right? And these are contained in the astral body. So when we die, that astral body is the one containing memories. Oh, oops, dropped my hat. Is the one containing the memories. But just because they're containing the memories, like I said, doesn't mean that they can generate more memories or they can generate more thought or more intellect. So remember that point, because I'm going to come back to that as I transition to now the higher mental body. The higher mental body is actually a union of what I mentioned in my last video between the divine spark and the higher self. That this higher self, as we know it, is actually the higher mental body that is created from that union. So that higher self really comes, the union with the higher self really comes from the Eve aspect of the I am presence with the Adam aspect of the divine spark within us, okay? And then we sort of achieve or reunite this body to create the higher mental body. And with that higher mental body, we are then able to access that higher self-consciousness, which is actually a direct link to our source consciousness, our consciousness outside of this matrix, okay? And that is where higher intellect comes from. That is where higher knowing comes from. That is where higher ability to discern, that is already present within the divine spark, higher critical thinking, then combines with the knowing aspect, where you may have had questions, you may have had the ability to critically think before, but now you are fully tapped into that knowing. So when people claim to have a higher knowing after an NDE, a higher union, and I was talking about this with someone on Twitter, simply because you achieve or you experience this cosmic consciousness, which is a direct relation to the Kundalini body. Oh, and I did promise I was going to make the Kundalini video. I'm sorry, guys. That might have to be next video, potentially. But this is going along the same lines. So that Kundalini body, that cosmic consciousness that a lot of these occultists may seek to achieve, is a result of astral phenomena, right? To think that you actually have access to higher knowing is wrong, in my opinion, because what you're accessing is the matrix consciousness, the matrix information, and that's only what exists on the astrals. Okay, so that cosmic consciousness, being one with the cosmos, can give you a feeling of much higher frequency, much higher vibration, and a feeling of oneness and bliss. But it's simply because that is higher than what you've experienced so far on this very dense plane of 3D materiality. What you're unifying with is all of these emotions that are existing, all of these deities and beings that are existing on this astral plane. And you're tapping into all of their perspectives, which I believe. I don't think it's, the actual knowledge that you're tapping into. Because when you die, and that's really the point of this video that I'm trying to make, when you die, all you have access to, and I've said this in other videos, are the memories of this lifetime. You won't have access to all of the knowledge that exists for you to grab. You won't understand all of a sudden how the astrals work, or you won't understand all of a sudden how the whole matrix work, or what realms exist above, that astral plane, because we can still tap into what is known as a virtual paradise, as nirvana, as the realms of the other gods, of the benevolent and the malevolent ones, which exists above the thought forms that we created, right? These angels and demons that exist in I called them gods earlier, but they really should call them angels. Angels and demons that exist in the lower planes, like I said, are just feeding off energy, just like I mentioned how we do so here. Yet in the ones higher, there's these gods and malevolent god that also benefit from their good karma, which they then extract energy from your good karma, right? Because they attract these groups together of goodness, and then the evil ones will attract the evil to, again, energy exchange until they get to this ultimate point of nirvana, which is essentially the opposite of samsara, still existing in the duality, right? Samsara is like hell. We are in samsara, we are in hell. And of course, there will be an opposite to that, which is nirvana, which is just bliss, nothing happens. And that's where this idea of boredom can come in, that, oh, well, if I go to nirvana, then nothing will happen and I'll just be bored. Yeah, because that's the false nirvana, in a sense. That's the false heaven, in which boredom is actually allowed to exist, because it's supposed to kind of manipulate you and coerce you back into the reincarnation cycle. And that's what happens. These entities that, you know, become so accomplished that they are allowed into the gates of nirvana essentially get bored because nothing happens there, and they come back trying to be characters in the game again. Usually they want to be good until, you know, they get manipulated back into sin, or the forces of sin bind them to it. But right, just like at the bottom of the sin wave, the sine wave, there's samsara. At the top of it would be nirvana. You're still existing in the duality. You haven't exited it. You're just at the epitome of good, where now it's all bliss and nothing happens. And, you know, in samsara, which may potentially even have a level lower, as in hell, where it's the epitome of evil, right? So that may even exist, whether it's in the astral or here, or even lower than here, as known as Tartarus. That is also a possibility. But the main point of this video is that once dead, you are in the astral, and you may or may not have access to previous lifetimes. So I may be mistaken in that regard, but you will for sure have access to your lifetime. And before you hit that blinding light, before you get reincarnated into here, you have access to the memories of this lifetime. You have access to the knowledge gained in this lifetime. So if you never in this lifetime realized self-gnosis, never realized that higher mental plane, that higher mental body, in which you are connected to source, you will be duped into the reincarnation cycle again, because that's where they get you. That's where they come in and they attach and they tell you, listen, you need to go back, or you need to do all these things, or, you know, they send your dead relatives in the form, or your demons in the forms of your dead relatives, or Jesus, or whatever they want to use to masquerade as your belief systems to use against you, because you haven't achieved self-gnosis, and you can't tap into a higher knowledge at that point, because your astral body only is encompassed by the emotions and memories associated with those emotions that you've accumulated throughout your lifetime. And we all know that we do not memorize things unless there's an emotion that comes with it, right? That's why we easily forget people's names, because we meet people and we're like, oh, that person didn't matter, and there's no emotional charge to it, right? So we forget their name, and we forget things that may actually matter, but because we don't have an emotional attachment to it, we don't attribute it as a memory. And that's why those traumatic memories are the hardest to wipe, to heal, because you haven't healed the actual emotional charge behind it. There's still a positive or a negative charge, more than likely negative if it's a trauma, right? But it could be in the form of positive too, you know. I can't think of an example right now, but I believe it's possible. So being in that astral body form, once you've shed the physical body, and then the etheric body also sheds after 40 days, apparently, all you have access are those memories, and you don't have the ability to generate intellect anymore, because it's not connected. All you have access, like I said, is the emotions. And the brain is gone, so there's no receiver for that higher intellect as well. Okay, or for the lower intellect, not the higher intellect. You would have the higher intellect if you generated that higher mental body, the union of spark with higher self. So therefore you get tricked. So my conclusion then in this video is, first of all, that higher mental plane body would need to be achieved, would need to be discovered, unionized, okay? And that's through a pure dedication to source, to relieving yourselves of the desires of this plane, of you know, not engaging in the endless sins of up and down, of positivity and negativity, in which you're energizing both of these dualities. And I talk about that a little bit more in my previous video. And that pure intent, the journey will take you where you need to go to unionize those two aspects. But also in the knowledge and self-gnosis of understanding what this place really is. Once you've accumulated these ideas and discovered that for yourself, that hey, this realm isn't what they tell us. I may not be here out of my own accord or out of my own knowing. I may have really been manipulated into coming here, and you know, those that follow this channel are there, at least in my opinion, usually, because apparently I've attracted you guys towards me. We've attracted each other, and that's why it's important to share this message, right? For the ones that aren't falling into these corrupt categories of either occultism, New Ageism, religion, common matrix materialism, and other forms of thoughts that are saying, yeah, okay, there's a little bit there, there's a little bit there, but that doesn't just fully jive with me. It's important to share this information to help people realize the truth is greater and harsher than what we've been presented. And that should be empowering to people. That should help people discover for themselves as they begin to look into it. Okay. Whew, okay, so with all that information, you know, take it as you may. Try to discern for yourself and think for yourself, hey, yeah, what is really happening with these NDE experiencers? They actually don't have any knowledge when they're getting in there because they're acting purely out of an emotional charge, right? That's why it's so easy to manipulate people that die back into the light, back into the reincarnation cycle, because all they have to do is blast them with bliss, and the emotional body reacts, and they don't have any memory or discernment because they're not able to say, oh wait, I have a memory that in this lifetime I study these NDE experiences and I realize this matrix is a trap, and I'm gonna be reincarnated if I go into that, no matter how good it feels. Oh wait, let me not do that. Let me intend to go to a higher plane. Let me intend to try and connect to my higher self. And you know, if for some reason we're not able to fully achieve that higher self state, then let me intend to call out to source, the one true source, and create a portal for myself and get out of here, right? Intent is very powerful. And the idea that this higher self may not be something that everyone actually even has. So all these New Agers trying to get people to connect with their higher selves, they may not even have it. They may, you know, they may still be an NPC soul that is being manipulated by their lower mental body that they are interpreting as their higher mental body. But really, they don't have that divine spark. And to gain that divine spark, you have to have that pure intent to connect with Source. And Source will fill you with its light. At least that's what I think. At least that's what I've come to know. That's what really resonates with my whole being. So let me know what you think. Okay, leave a comment below. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Share it. Like I said, it's important to share this information and subscribe for future and relative content. All right, I'll see you guys next time.